Trump's immigration blitz. Unprecedented mass deportation proposal shakes nation. Donald Trump's latest immigration proposal has sparked intense debate across the United States. The plan calls for a massive increase in deportations and strict new measures to prevent unauthorized entry. If implemented, it would represent the most sweeping deportation effort in U.S. history, potentially affecting millions of immigrants. Critics argue the plan is extreme and inhumane, while supporters say it's necessary for national security and rule of law. The proposal includes expedited removal proceedings, increased detention capacity, and restrictions on asylum claims. It also aims to pressure local governments to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. The plan faces major legal and logistical hurdles. Constitutional challenges are expected, and many cities may resist cooperating. Immigrant advocates are mobilizing in opposition, while immigration hawks praise the tough approach. Key takeaways. Trump's new plan aims to drastically increase deportations and border security. The proposal faces significant legal and practical obstacles to implementation. The plan has reignited fierce debate over U.S. immigration policies. Historical context of U.S. deportation policies. The United States has a long history of immigration policies and deportation practices. These have changed over time based on economic, political, and social factors. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, immigration laws began to limit who could enter the country. The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 was one of the first major restrictions. The Immigration Act of 1924 set quotas on immigrants from certain countries. This law stayed in place for decades. It aimed to limit immigration from Southern and Eastern Europe. During the Great Depression, many Mexican immigrants and Mexican Americans were deported. This was known as the Mexican repatriation. It affected over 1 million people. In 1954, Operation Wetback targeted undocumented Mexican immigrants. The program deported hundreds of thousands of people. The Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 ended national origin quotas. It focused on family reunification and skills-based immigration instead. Recent years have seen debates about border security and undocumented immigrants. Deportations increased under Presidents Bush, Obama, and Trump. Some key policies include Secure Communities Program, 2008, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, DACA, 2012, Priority Enforcement Program, 2014. These policies have shaped how the U.S. handles immigration and deportation today. Overview of Trump's immigration blitz. Donald Trump announced a sweeping new immigration plan on January 5, 2025. The plan aims to deport millions of undocumented immigrants within his first year back in office. Key points of Trump's plan include mass deportations of an estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants, ending birthright citizenship for children of non-citizens, expanding border wall construction, increasing immigration enforcement personnel by 50%, implementing a deportation force to carry out removals. Trump claims this plan will enhance national security and protect American jobs. Critics argue it would separate families and harm the economy. The proposal also faces legal challenges. Constitutional scholars question the legality of ending birthright citizenship without amending the Constitution. Cost estimates for the plan range from $400 to $600 billion. Funding sources remain unclear. Trump suggests taxing remittances sent to other countries. If enacted, this would mark the largest deportation effort in U.S. history. Previous administrations deported far fewer people annually. The plan has energized Trump's base but alarmed immigrant communities. Protests have erupted in several major cities since the announcement. The legal framework underpinning deportation plans. The U.S. government's power to deport non-citizens stems from federal immigration laws. These laws define who can be removed from the country and the procedures for doing so. The Immigration and Nationality Act, INA, is the main law governing deportation. It lists grounds for removal, including entering the country illegally and committing certain crimes. Other key laws include Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act, IRERA, Real ID Act, Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act, AEDPA. These laws have expanded deportation grounds and limited relief options for immigrants. The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, enforces immigration laws. Within DHS, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, IC, handles most deportations. Courts have upheld the federal government's broad power over immigration, but they've also set some limits, like requiring due process in removal proceedings. State and local laws can affect deportation too. Some places cooperate closely with ICE, while others limit such cooperation. Recent proposals aim to speed up deportations and reduce legal protections for immigrants. Critics say these plans may violate U.S. and international law. The legal framework for deportation is complex and often changing. New policies and court rulings can quickly shift how laws are applied. Comparative analysis with previous deportation policies. Trump's proposed deportation plan marks a significant shift from past policies. It aims to remove millions more undocumented immigrants than previous administrations. The scale of Trump's plan dwarfs efforts by recent presidents. Barack Obama deported about 3 million people over 8 years. George W. Bush removed around 2 million in his tenure. Trump's goal to deport up to 11 million people in a short time frame is unprecedented. This table compares the numbers. President deportations time frame. Trump proposed up to 11 million, 1 to 2 years. Obama, 3 million, 8 years. Bush, 2 million, 8 years. Past policies focused on criminals and recent border crossers. Trump's plan targets a much wider group, including long-term residents. The methods proposed are also more aggressive. Trump plans to expand detention, limit legal protections, and involve local police in immigration enforcement. Critics worry about the impact on families and communities. Many undocumented immigrants have U.S. citizen children or deep community ties. The plan's feasibility is questioned by experts. The current immigration system lacks the capacity to process so many cases quickly. Key provisions of Trump's deportation plan. Trump's proposed deportation plan contains several major changes to current immigration policies. These include expanding rapid removal procedures, tightening asylum rules, and broadening enforcement priorities. Expansion of expedited removal. The plan aims to broaden the use of expedited removal. This allows for quick deportations without court hearings. Currently, this process applies to immigrants within 100 miles of the border who entered in the last 14 days. Trump wants to extend it nationwide. It would cover immigrants anywhere in the U.S. who can't prove they've been here for over 2 years. This change could affect millions of undocumented immigrants. Critics worry this may lead to mistakes and unfair deportations. Supporters say it will speed up removals and save resources. Changes in asylum rules. Trump's plan includes stricter asylum rules. It would narrow who can claim asylum and how. Key changes include making it harder to pass initial, credible fear screenings, limiting grounds for asylum claims, charging fees for asylum applications, banning work permits for asylum seekers. The plan also calls for faster processing of asylum claims. It aims to clear the backlog of cases within 6 months. These changes would likely reduce the number of successful asylum claims. Enforcement priorities and non-priority deportations. The plan expands who is targeted for deportation. It removes Obama-era priorities that focused on criminals and recent border crossers. Under Trump's plan, anyone in the U.S. illegally could face deportation. This includes long-term residents, families with U.S. citizen children, people with no criminal records. The plan also increases cooperation between federal and local law enforcement. It revives programs that deputize local police to enforce immigration laws. Critics say this approach creates fear in immigrant communities. Supporters argue it improves public safety and rule of law. Impact on immigrant communities. Trump's proposed deportation plan would have major effects on immigrant communities across the U.S. Millions of undocumented immigrants could face removal, tearing families apart. Many immigrant neighborhoods would see dramatic population drops. Local businesses that rely on immigrant customers might close. Schools could lose students and funding. Fear and uncertainty would likely spread in immigrant communities. People might avoid going to work, school, or seeking medical care due to deportation worries. Mixed-status families with both documented and undocumented members would face tough choices. They may need to split up or leave the country together. Key impacts: family separations, community disruption, economic losses, increased fear and isolation. Immigrant advocacy groups warn of potential civil rights violations. Mass deportations could lead to racial profiling and wrongful detentions. Some cities and states may resist cooperating with federal immigration enforcement. This could create tension between local and national authorities. The plan's effects would reach beyond undocumented immigrants. Legal permanent residents and naturalized citizens might face increased scrutiny too. Challenges to implementation. Trump's proposed deportation plan faces several major hurdles. Legal challenges in federal courts could delay or block key parts of the policy. Many judges may rule aspects unconstitutional. State and local officials in sanctuary cities vow to resist cooperation with federal immigration authorities. This could slow efforts to identify and detain undocumented immigrants. Logistics present another big obstacle. The U.S. lacks enough detention facilities and immigration judges to process millions of cases quickly. Expanding capacity would require significant funding from Congress. Transportation poses difficulties too. Deporting millions by air or land would strain resources. Many countries may refuse to accept large numbers of deportees, further complicating removals. Public opposition could also impede the plan. Protests and civil disobedience may disrupt enforcement actions. Some lawmakers aim to block funding for expanded deportations. Staffing shortages at immigration agencies may hinder implementation. Hiring and training thousands of new agents takes time. Low morale and high turnover rates compound the problem. Economic impacts worry some supporters. Mass removals could hurt industries relying on immigrant labor. Agriculture, construction, and hospitality sectors may face worker shortages. Role of state and local governments. State and local governments play a crucial part in Trump's proposed deportation plan. Their involvement would be necessary to carry out such a large-scale operation. Some states and cities may cooperate fully with federal immigration efforts. They could allocate police resources to help identify and detain undocumented immigrants. Other localities might resist the plan. Sanctuary cities limit cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. These areas may refuse to assist or share information with ICE agents. The plan could face legal challenges from states and cities. They may argue it violates states' rights or local laws protecting immigrant communities. Funding is another key issue. The federal government might withhold money from uncooperative areas. This could impact local budgets for schools, roads, and other services. State and local jails may be asked to hold more detainees. This could strain resources and lead to overcrowding. Some areas worry about economic impacts. Certain industries rely heavily on immigrant labor. Mass deportations could hurt local businesses and tax revenues. Community relations could be affected. Trust between immigrant communities and local police might decrease. This could make it harder for police to solve crimes. Responses from advocacy groups and civil society. Immigration advocacy groups, legal organizations, and international bodies have mobilized in response to the proposed deportation plan. Their efforts span courtroom challenges, grassroots activism, and global condemnation. Litigation efforts. The American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, filed lawsuits in federal courts to block key parts of the plan. They argue it violates due process rights and international asylum laws. Several state attorneys general joined forces to challenge the constitutionality of mass deportations. Legal aid groups set up hotlines and clinics to help immigrants understand their rights. Pro bono lawyers stepped up to represent those facing removal proceedings. The National Immigration Law Center coordinated a network of attorneys to file emergency stays of deportation. Grassroots movements. Immigrant rights groups organized protests in major cities across the U.S. Marches drew thousands in New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. Social media campaigns like No Deportations trended nationwide. Faith leaders spoke out against family separations. Some churches offered sanctuary to those at risk of deportation. College students staged walkouts and rallies on campuses. Volunteers helped immigrants prepare emergency plans. They set up Know Your Rights workshops and family preparedness clinics. Community organizations raised funds for legal defense and family support. International reactions. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees expressed deep concern over the plan. They warned it could violate international refugee protections. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights called for the U.S. to reconsider the policy. Mexico and Central American nations criticized the proposal. They worried about the impact of mass returns on their countries. Canada offered to take in some asylum seekers affected by the plan. Human rights groups like Amnesty International launched global petition drives. They urged world leaders to pressure the U.S. to respect migrant rights. Long-term implications for immigration policy. Trump's proposed deportation plan could reshape U.S. immigration policy for years to come. If implemented, it may set new precedents for how the country handles undocumented immigrants. The plan's focus on mass deportations could strain relationships with other countries, especially in Latin America. This may complicate future diplomatic efforts and international cooperation on immigration issues. A more restrictive immigration system could impact the U.S. economy. Some industries rely heavily on immigrant labor, both documented and undocumented. Changes in the workforce could affect productivity and costs in sectors like agriculture, construction, and hospitality. The plan might also influence future political campaigns and policy debates. Immigration is likely to remain a hot-button issue, with candidates taking more extreme positions to appeal to their base. Legal challenges to the plan could lead to new court rulings on immigration law. These decisions may shape how future administrations interpret and enforce immigration policies. Public opinion on immigration may shift in response to the plan's implementation. This could affect voter priorities and influence future elections and policy decisions. The plan's emphasis on enforcement might lead to long-term changes in border security measures and technologies. These could include increased surveillance, more physical barriers, or new screening procedures. Public opinion and media coverage. Polls show mixed views on Trump's deportation plan. A recent Gallup survey found 42% of Americans support it, while 51% oppose it. Support is higher among Republicans at 78%. Only 14% of Democrats back the proposal. Independents are split, with 45% in favor and 48% against. Media coverage has been extensive. Major news outlets run daily stories on the plan's potential impacts. Many focus on personal accounts from immigrant families. Some conservative media praise the tough approach. They argue it will enhance public safety and protect American jobs. Liberal outlets tend to emphasize humanitarian concerns. Television news has featured heated debates between politicians and experts. Fact-checkers work to verify claims made by both sides. Social media buzzes with passionate opinions. Hashtags like No Deportations and Secure Borders trend frequently. Viral videos show emotional family separations and ICE raids. Local papers in border states give heavy coverage to enforcement efforts. They report on community tensions and economic effects. Immigrant advocacy groups stage protests to draw media attention. Pro-enforcement rallies also make headlines in some areas. Frequently asked questions. Trump's immigration policies sparked controversy and legal battles. They aim to increase deportations and restrict immigration through various methods. What specific policies did the Trump administration implement to increase deportation rates? The administration expanded the use of expedited removal. This allowed faster deportation of undocumented immigrants who couldn't prove they had been in the U.S. for over 2 years. ICE conducted more workplace raids. Agents arrested hundreds of workers at factories and other job sites. The administration also tried to end DACA. This program protected some young immigrants from deportation. How did Trump's deportation plan compare to previous administrations? Trump's policies were more aggressive than those of prior presidents. He removed Obama-era priorities that focused on deporting criminals. Under Trump, ICE could target any undocumented immigrant for removal. This led to more arrests of people without criminal records. The number of deportations actually decreased compared to Obama's first term, but interior arrests rose sharply. What legal challenges were faced by the Trump administration's deportation policy? Courts blocked several key immigration policies. The travel ban faced multiple lawsuits before a revised version was upheld. Attempts to withhold funding from sanctuary cities were ruled unconstitutional. Judges also stopped the administration from ending DACA. The zero-tolerance border policy sparked outrage. It was halted after courts ordered family separations to end. What impact did the deportation blitz have on immigrant communities in the U.S.? Fear and anxiety increased in many immigrant communities. Some families made plans in case parents were deported. School attendance dropped in areas with large immigrant populations. Many avoided seeking medical care or reporting crimes. Some businesses that relied on immigrant labor faced worker shortages. This affected industries like agriculture and construction. How were sanctuary cities affected by the Trump administration's immigration policies? The administration tried to punish sanctuary cities by withholding federal funds. Courts largely blocked these efforts. ICE increased enforcement in and around sanctuary cities. This included more arrests and raids in these areas. Some sanctuary cities strengthened their policies. They limited cooperation with ICE even more in response to federal pressure. What changes did the Trump administration make to the criteria for prioritizing deportations? The administration removed Obama-era priorities that focused on serious criminals. Under Trump, any undocumented immigrant could be a target. ICE was instructed to arrest all undocumented people they encountered. This included those without criminal records. The administration also broadened the definition of criminal alien. It included people charged with crimes but not yet convicted.